Here what we are doing, we are just calling all the methods also. We are accessing all the methods also. By using the creating object to the class C, we can access all members of class C, D, and E. Now I'll create object to the class D. D1 equal to new D. System dot out dot println D object members. System dot out dot println of D1 dot S1. We can access the C class members and D class members using the class D object. We cannot access class E members inside the D class. E1 dot S2. System dot out dot println of D1 dot S3. This is not possible. Since object is created to the class D is not having member of S3, so we'll get the error here. We'll comment this. Here also, D1.test. We can access the C class method by using the class D object. We can access the D class method by using object of D, D1.test3. We cannot access the class C method using the object of class D. I'm commenting this. Now, if you want to create object to the C class, C1, we can access using the C class object. We can access only C class members. We can't access any other members. System dot out dot println of C object members. We can access only C class members. C class member is S1 attribute and test method. Println of C1 dot S1. C1 dot test. We can access only this. We can't access more than that. Because C is having only the attributes C and C1. Now controllers. See here we have class C, string S1, void test. We have two members. We have one constructor. Whenever we are executing this constructor, by default, compiler will take care of giving calling statement to super. Here we can learn one more concept later. For every class, if there is no class C extends, there is no extends with any other class. It means like there is a default extends with the object class. For every class, whatever we created till now, if there is no extends keyword, by default, the compiler will take care of giving the extends of object. Object is also one of the class which already developed by the JDK developers. We have that class in java.lang package. That class we can know. The object class is a one concept. We can learn that concept later. Now I am removing this. But if you get a doubt of class C also, class C constructor also, if it is a no argument constructor, there is a calling statement to no argument constructor of superclass. Here, but there is no superclass. But by default, Java C command compiler will take care of giving the extends object class. Object is one of the class already developed by the JDK developers. By default, we'll get the extends of object. Object class also having the default constructor. This super will go and call the default constructor of object class, but inside the default constructor of object class, there is nothing, no logic over there. That is just dummy. That is simply a constructor like this. Now, if you go to the class D extend C, here we are just extending inherits all the members of a class C object into the class D. Whenever we create object the class D, we can get the members of S1 test of class C, and we can get the members of S2 and test 1, because class D object is able to access the non-static members of class D and class C. If you go to the class E extends D, D is already extents of C. D is already having the class C members and class D members. In class E, we will get the D members and C members and E members as well. If you create object to the class E, you can access all members of class C, D, and E. This is possible. If you create object to the class D, we can get only the class D members and C members, not E members. E members, if you try to access, we will get the compile time error. Here, class C, C1 equal to nucleus C. Here, class C is having only two members, one attribute and method. You can access only two attributes, only two members, attribute and method. Here, we have to recap one more thing. Whenever we create object to the class E, inside class E, no argument constructor. There is no calling statement to superclass, but compiler will take care of giving the calling statement to superclass, no argument constructor. This will go and execute the class D first. Whenever it is executing class D, there is a calling statement to superclass, no argument constructor. Again here, it will check is there any superclass for this. We have superclass C. First, it will execute this. Here also class C also it will check is there any superclass for the class C. If it is having superclass, by default the superclass is the object class. In object class, no argument constructor, there is no body, but we won't get any SOP, but we'll execute this first. We'll get the output of C first, then we'll get the output of D, then we'll get the output of E whenever it execute this selected one. After executing those constructors, object is created referring with the class E1. E1 is a reference of that variable attribute, variable identifier. Then whenever we print all the string data types, default value is null, we'll get the null, null, null 3 times. Then we are printing the system.println of method names, test1 and test3. Then we are creating object to the class D. Whenever we create object to the class D, it will go and execute the no argument constructor of class D. Here there is a calling statement to superclass no argument constructor. Superclass no argument constructor is this one. This will execute first because superclass to class C is object class. We are not going to execute that object class constructor. Even though it is executing, there is no body inside the object class no argument constructor. We won't get any system out.println. First, we will get this C and D, and we are printing the null 2 times, and we are printing the test1 and test. Similarly, we will do this one. Control S. Our class is test12. Compile this. Go to the classes. First, we'll get all 3 constructors, and we got the 3 times null, all the methods. Whenever we create the object to the class D, we'll get the 2 constructors. We got 2 times null, 2 references. In class C, even though it is calling object class no argument constructor, we won't get anything, but we'll get the output of this C members and null and test. Now we can try this. To try to access the E class members, we'll get the output of compile time errors. Go to the SRC. Compile this test 12. We get the two errors. You can't access the members of E into the class T. Now here, see, if you want to call superclass constructors, if you want to access the superclass members, you can call using the super keyword. Okay. Now we can learn about what is super. What's the file name? Class F, int I, we have no argument constructor. Now one argument constructor int I. This dot I equal to I. You want to access the current class member. This is current class member. You can access using this keyword. Current class level member. This dot I equal to. This is a local variable to the constructor. Class T extends F. System out dot println of G. I want to call superclass augmented constructor. I created two classes. Public static void main string args. This 13.java. Inside this, I'll create object to the G class. G1 equal to new G. System out dot println of G1 dot I. I'll create object to the G object G2 equal to new G of 200. I'm using argumented constructor. System dot out dot println of G2 dot I. See, we have simply we have a class f. Inside class f we have int I. We have two constructors, f and f with argumentative constructor. In f with argumentative constructor int I, I am just changing the f class object variable with the local variable of int I in the constructor, and I am just printing this. And I have G class. G class extends of f. We are inheriting all members of a class f into the G. And inside this, I have two constructors, G argumentative constructor and without argument, no argument constructor. If you want to call any no argument constructor, by default, if you're not giving this, compiler will call the no argument constructor. If you want to explicitly call any argumentative constructor of superclass, we have to call using the super keyword. This is a use of super keyword. If you don't want to call anything, by default, compiler will take care of calling super keyword for each and every constructor. If you not keep, by default, compiler will do. This is compiler will do. If you not keep, by default, compiler will do this. By default, compiler will do this. I am giving manually. I want to call super of I. If you want to call any argumentative constructor, we have to call manually by calling the super keyword. Now, whenever we compile this and execute this, first object is created to the G class. Whenever object is created, it will check which constructor is it calling. It is calling the no argument constructor. In no argument constructor, there is no calling statement explicitly given. By default, compiler will give the super calling statement. It will go and super to the no argument constructor of f class. First, it will print this one, then it will print this one. And after that, by default value of I is 0. We'll get the 0 over here. Then we are creating object to the G class by calling the argumentative constructor. Call will go and execute this. Here we are explicitly calling super of I. If you're not giving this, by default, it will go and call the super of no argument constructor. First, we'll get this, then we'll get this. But here we are calling explicitly, so it will go and execute this first. We'll get the value of I equal to 200. Then we'll get this first. After getting this, we'll get this. Then we'll get the value as 200. Control S. Just compile this test 13. First, if you see here, first no argument constructors with 0. Then next time, I am explicitly calling no argument constructor of f. To execute first f constructor argumented, then it will execute this one. Now, whatever I said, I will remove this. Now it will call the no argument constructor. Compiling this again. Now, if you see here, it is calling first, by default, compiler will call the no argument constructor of superclass. We have to learn some more things in the inheritance. We'll continue tomorrow. If you have any doubts, you can ask now. Otherwise, we can see tomorrow. Okay, then we can see tomorrow class.